Hi, everyone. I'm Krylios, Team Rayceen Productions MC and producer. And today, as per usual, joining me is Rayceen Pendarvis. Hey, Rayceen.
How are you? Greetings and salutations, all. And today we have the esteemed Franklin Garcia for DC Council at Large. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Franklin Garcia, and I am running for an at-large seat on the DC Council. I arrived in Washington, DC with my sister in 1981. My mother was big on education. In fact, education led my parents to move out of the city in the 80s. Back then, my parents didn't have a lot of faith in a DC public education, and that led them to the decision to move themselves out of the suburbs. My sister and I attended schools in Montgomery County, where I ended up graduating from Montgomery Glen High School in Silver Spring. After high school, I came back to DC and attended undergraduate at GW, where I obtained a bachelor's degree in finance and continued on to American University, where I received a master's degree in financial economics. My undergraduate college years, I would be active throughout various organizations and would be introduced to the fight for DC statehood when I was inspired by Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., when he came to my school looking for college students to join the effort to become the first shadow senator for DC. I knew DC was going to be my permanent home after graduating from school. So I bought my first house in the 90s. For many years, I worked in banking, dealing with consumer lending, and that helped me get a good foundation for how the mortgage industry works, a tool I would use later in my financial acquisitions. Now, I transitioned to technology, where I currently work, holding a government clearance for the past 20 years. I started my community engagement in the Latino community in DC many years ago. I got more involved in the larger DC community and started learning of all the needs of the community, especially in the Latino and immigrant communities in DC. I am a founding member of the DC Latino Caucus, and I have headed a number of nonprofit organizations, including the DC Latino Leadership Council. I have held positions in various Democratic establishments in the city, and I am currently the U.S. Shadow Representative for the District of Columbia, a position I have held since 2014.
Oh, wow. Look at that. So many accomplishments, so many accomplishments. So tell us, with all that accomplishment, why have you chosen to run for DC Council at Large?
Well, I'm running for a number of reasons, but one of the main ones is to break the ceiling. The DC Council has been in existence for almost 50 years, and throughout the many years, many Latinos and Latinas have run to be on the council. Now, we have yet to have a member of our community on the council, and I believe our time is now. We have been in the city for a very, very long time. We contribute immensely to the vibrancy of the city. We're around 15% of the population. Most jurisdictions around the nation with far less contributions to their community than we make here in DC already have Latinos representation in their legislative body. And it is time for DC to also do the same. I point to the neighboring states of Maryland and Virginia, which both have equal or less percentage of their population being Latinos, and they have had Latinos representation for a long time now. I am currently the highest Latino elected official in DC, and with my limitation as a shadow member of Congress and no salary, it's very limited what I can do for my community. We have no one on the school board, the city council, or very, very few commissioners. I have been working to change that for many years now, and the DC Council is our next step.
And that's so important. That's so important. Those are some very important points that you mentioned. Sure. But what are the three most important points and the three tiers of passion for you, if elected, that you will fight to change or fight to implement?
Now, thank you for that question. Now, I care a lot about many different issues, but let me mention three of them. I care about affordable housing, education, and public safety. Now, in housing, I remember that a one-bedroom apartment on Columbia Road, where we paid $200 a month, now goes for over $1,500. For someone to be in an affordable housing situation, they should be allocating no more than 30% of their income towards rent. The challenge is that if someone is earning the minimum wage to be $15 in July of this year, the highest minimum wage in the nation, incidentally, they can only afford to pay about $780 a month for rent. But as stated earlier, the going market rent for a one-bedroom apartment is twice that much. That means that you now have a lot of residents paying as much as 80% of their earnings going towards rent. That puts many residents in the extremely low income bracket, which means that every month they deal with the dilemma of paying for rent or paying for food or transportation, and many fall behind and end up homeless. We have over 26,000 DC households that have extremely low income, and 90% of those are in the categories of, in that category are people of color. Individuals in extremely low income brackets are those whose income is below 30% of the area median income, which for our area is at $117,000. With that large number, you can see how big of a disparity it exists. When we talk about a minimum wage of $15, that would equate to an amount around $30,000 annual income. Now, I praise many of the tools we have in the city to assist our residents. I think the DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, is trying hard to help with the housing crisis. I applaud the administration's funding of over $100 million to the Housing Production Trust Fund to ensure we have programs in financing for affordable housing. DHCD's purchasing programs like the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, or TOPA, or the District Opportunity to Purchase Act, or DOPA, other programs such as the First Right to Purchase Assistance Program and many others are good tools to secure affordable housing for residents. And programs like local rent supplement programs, the housing choice voucher programs are helping keep people in place. But we have nearly 50,000 people on DC Housing Authority's waiting list for public housing and over 6,000 people experiencing homelessness. I also appreciate Mayor Spouser's objectives to create 36,000 new housing units, with 12,000 of them being affordable by 2025. But even this would fall short of the needs for affordable housing. Housing is currently a very small share of DC's budget, around 3%. And the amount we allocate to affordable housing, around $233 million, is very small when you compare it to the $1.8 billion we spend on school, or the $1 billion we spend on public safety. If elected, I will advocate for a larger portion of our budget to go to housing and ensure that more funding goes directly to community-based organizations that I think are doing a great job of finding creative ways to deal with our crisis that we have in affordable housing. Now, I'm going to talk about the other two, and I'll be a little quicker on that. In the case of education, at $27,000 to $29,000 per child, we spend double the national average in public schools, yet our school system is many times ranked lowest of most schools in the 50 states. We have very good schools and very bad schools, and we have resorted to a lottery program to give kids choices so they can get a decent education, which doesn't always work. This ultimately leads to some non-performing schools doing worse when they're faced with the lower enrollment, which of course leads to less funding for those schools. This is why you hear that your zip code determines the quality of education your child receives. This is not acceptable. We have seen public charter schools step in and fill the academic gap created in the traditional public school system. This too is not acceptable. All schools need to be performing school. A good education is the closest thing our young people have to guaranteeing their future, and we cannot be flexible here. We must all demand the best schools for our children and accept nothing less. Now, let me touch a little bit on public safety as my third topic. We have a similar situation in public safety with nearly 4,000 police force in the Metropolitan Police Department. DC has the highest police to residents ratio in the nation, and yet year after year, we continue to have very high homicide rates. I caution people who think that just putting more police officers on the streets is the solution to improving public safety. I applaud initiatives that lead to more trust by the community of its police force. The police needs the community to be a key partner. But when the community feels that the police cannot be trusted, we all lose. body cameras, programs that have police officers interact with the community, and sensitivity training to officers have contributed largely to building this trust with the community. We need more tools and engagement to strengthen and build on that trust. Those are my 3 items.
Wow, wow. Well,
thank you.
yes,
Thank you. Well
you look
spoken.
like you have a plan. You have a plan. So speaking of plans, you know, with this pandemic, I know that everyone has had to, you know, adapt to what we're going through. So quickly, tell me how your campaign has adapted to this pandemic and how you guys have been handling it.
Well, you know, we by nature do a lot of our work virtually. Currently, we are at the stage where we're collecting money to build our coffers. So a lot of the work we're currently doing is engaging people remotely, whether through emails or phones. And so in terms of the campaign work, it hasn't stopped. We continue to do it. One of the things that I am working on the side is helping one of the most vulnerable communities, which is the undocumented community currently, that has no help whatsoever. They have not been able to get any benefits or help from the federal level or the local folks. And so I am actually working a lot more with that community, to be honest, than in the campaign.
I see, I see. Wow. Well, you know,
and that's great, and that's so important.
We'll go to the final question, which is, please tell our viewers how they can support your campaign and how they can follow you and keep up with everything that you're doing.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, again, my name is Franklin Garcia. I'm running for a seat on the DC Council at Large. To learn more about me, you can visit my website at franklinfordc.com. I am particularly looking for small donations. I am participating in the public financing program that the city has put in place, which means I am not taking corporate donations or donations greater than $100. But I need 250 small donations before I can qualify for the program. So I ask you to please, again, visit franklinfordc.com and make a small contribution. Now, thank you for the opportunity to be on the Ask Rayceen show. Very, very honored.
Well, it was our pleasure to interview you. And hopefully when the Ask Rayceen show does come back later on this year, then, or next year, whenever it comes back, we can catch up in real life. So thanks so much for joining us today. Rayceen, take us out.
And most of all, thank you all for watching.